Many of us in Santa Cruz area are familiar with the Pacific Voices Choir, yes? A number of them in the house today. And Pacific Voices is a choir that used to be the Unity Choir of the Unity Temple Church here in Santa Cruz. And Serendipity got its roots from the Religious Science Church in San Jose, what used to be First Church of Religious Science, which is now Centers for Spiritual Living, San Jose. And that choir has really gone the distance, singing at churches that I was speaking at before Inner Light. And it was that choir that kept saying, when you get a church, we're going to sing at your church. I'm not going to have a church. We're going to sing at your church. No, I'm not going to have a church. And some of you were even there back then, a number of years ago. That particular song that they were just singing struck a real accord with me in this moment. Lee and I went on a little road trip last night. We went up to San Francisco, and there's a musical that's been there, a Broadway musical that came across to San Francisco and is now, after today, making its way back across the state, called Motown, the Musical. Center, 4 rows in, oh my God. So this is a play that Berry Gordy put on, which is a tribute to Motown. And I looked at the program, and somehow or another, they managed to incorporate in there 60 songs. Not all the songs, but in medleys and storytelling. And they did an exquisite job of telling history and the times. You know, the 60s and the 70s, it was, up into the 80s, those were some rough times. And I just really love the way that they captured it. I've been a professional diversity trainer, for many, many years. I've said it then, and I still stand by it, that Motown did more to end racism than anything on the planet. Motown, this place that it stood with the music. New territory, this absolutely refusing to have the music segregated and saying, you know what, we can all celebrate together. And there was something in this crazy little generation that I was born into, these boomers, that had the audacity to say the beat is more important. I want to party with you. And life has changed. It just has not been the same. Around the world, literally. I just came back from a trip in Europe, and just all over the world, people are singing, these songs, this movement, this beat. It's sort of revolutionized how we show up. This thing called whatever that is, the soul, the oneness, the power, the getting out of yourself, the celebration. It's like, thank God for music. And thank God for that territory. My topic today is growth, okay? And growth happens on all different kinds of levels. Whenever I speak, I always remind us that the macro and the micro are the same. They're just a matter of degree. They're not different. So the same principles that work in your own individual life are the same principles that work for global relationships. It's not big or small. There's not a gravity for a tennis ball and a separate gravity for a rocket ship. There's just gravity. There's not a different language for, or different music for a symphony than there is for a little harmonica. It's all music. It's all the same thing. It's just a matter of degrees of how we use these things. So you'll often hear me go from something that's really global to something that's really local and personal. And I know if it were not for the CDs, I wouldn't know what I talked about. Because afterwards, I'm thinking, okay, I know I talked about the Easter Bunny and slavery. And was there a story in there? Was there really a message? And there's really a message in there. So there's the power of rewind. CDs are CDs are available. We do we do live stream, and that's available online. as well, either our website or, or YouTube. So if you want to listen to this stuff again. But when you're listening to me, don't just compartmentalize it. We have a tendency to want to think of the spiritual principles as applying in only a particular arena. Maybe the thing that's a matter of my heart. So let's say I'm struggling with a health issue. So I'm really trying to work all this spiritual stuff for my health. Or maybe there's some chaos in my home. Perhaps I'm unemployed and I'm really looking for a job or whatever. It's the same stuff everywhere. I contend that we don't really need to know more. You just need to take the little bit that you do know and use it in more places. I want to say that again. You really don't need to know more things. Just have the courage to take the little bit that you do know and apply it everywhere. Okay? Have the courage to apply what you're doing in your own life at work. Have the courage to apply the principles that you're using for health in your finances. Have the courage to not compartmentalize that. I'll get that all the time. Well, Reverend Deborah, that's fine for, this little relationship, but this is war, or that's fine for this, but this is the mortgage. It's all the same thing. I want you to catch that. There's not more life in a redwood than a weed. There's not more life in an elephant than a chihuahua. It's all the same thing. Okay? It's just a matter of degree. So the moment you find yourself going, but, that's your warning signal that you're getting off. Yeah. But what about? No. The moment you get into but, you're straying from what you know. I like to say get your ifs, ands, and buts out of the way. Don't look for exclusion. Look for inclusion. Don't try to find all of the ways that you're afraid that the spiritual things that you know aren't going to work. Challenge yourself to explore and find more ways that they will work. This is how we grow. You have to do it. You have to test it. You have to try it. You have to prove it to yourself. It doesn't matter how much anybody tells you unless you do it. You get as much out of it as you put in it. It may sound overly simplistic, but that's the truth. It's like any good tool. How many good tools that we have that are sitting up on the shelf or in the drawer? And all the wonderful things that tool can do. You have that little gem, that little exercise thing. And the manufacturers know that. They know it's going to be a very expensive valet. They know it's going to be a really expensive coat rack while you're paying for it monthly. Because we have all of these great intentions, but then we get it and we don't do anything with it. It doesn't matter how sharp that knife is. It doesn't matter how fast that blender goes. It doesn't matter if you don't use it. So I hear people all the time challenging me or us or other spiritual leaders on these tools they're not using. Wanting us to prove to them how much they work. See, I can't prove to you that love works if you refuse to love. See, I can't prove to you the power of forgiveness if you choose not to forgive. You know, I can't show you the benefit of courage if you won't take a step. The best that we can do, the Buddhists call it fingers pointing to the moon. The best that we can do is point people in the right direction, kind of like a compass. Go over there. There's something for you over there. They say, but don't get stuck on the finger. Don't get stuck on the finger. Okay? Don't get stuck on the messenger. All of us have fallen short. None of us have lived up to our full potential. But there are words of truth. There are principles of truth. There's the big and. There's kind of an irony where the United States, in our preamble to the Declaration of Independence, the truth of those words has sparked revolutions and democracies all over the world for centuries. And yet we haven't lived up to its truth yet. We hold these truths to be self-evident. Truths that all men are created equal and are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. That's a spiritual manifesto. That is a spiritual declaration. We're equal not because the government made us equal. We're not equal because somebody passed this law. Created equal. And because of that, we have certain inalienable rights. Now, the person that wrote that had 200 slaves. Okay? So we can take a look at that and go, well, how much truth could there be in that? That person's not living that. What are we paying more attention to? What everybody else is doing or what the truth is? What everybody else is doing or what the truth is? So many times we stop our growth because we're protesting something. Well, I'm not going to follow my spirituality because you know how bad religion is. And you know all those bad things religion has done. Well, yeah, religion has done a lot of bad things. You know, religion's also done a lot of good things. Most charities, hospitals, schools, and stuff, they were started religiously. Even University of Southern California, USC, that I got my undergraduate from, was a Methodist college. Dominican hospital here, Catholic. It's like, yes, there's a mixture, but we throw the baby out with the bathwater. I'm not going to follow my spirituality because you abused yours. I'm not going to be prosperous and wealthy because you know money's bad. You know what all those rich people do? You know, way they've abused their money. So I'm not going to grow and learn my prosperity in protest of what other people have done with theirs. Well, I don't know if I'm going to get married. I don't know if I can do this relationship thing, because there's all this divorce rate, and, I know what happened to my parents and all this. I'm just going to, hang out here a little bit. Why make a commitment? Because nobody else has been able to do it. Any of this sound familiar? Don't stop your growth because of what other people have or haven't done. All have fallen short. And no matter how much you grow, there's always more growing to do. Growth is not a destination. Don't be disappointed in yourself because you haven't arrived at where you thought you would be by whatever, this age, this time, this blah, 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 blah. Is there anybody in the room who honestly is now where they thought they were going to be 10 years ago? Let the record show no hands. Just for the record. Life's not a destination. Life is the journey. Life is the process. Living is a process. There's no place to get to. You try to get from A to B just to find out when you get to B, that's your new A. You go to high school and you're all excited. You know, and then you get to be a junior, and you get to be a senior, and you get to be, you get to graduate, and then what? You're a freshman. All over again. You blossom, you grow, boom. Full blown, and then there's fall, and then there's winter, and then you do it all over again. That's how it is with life. That's what growth is about. This idea of new territory. Life never repeats itself. Ever. No two snowflakes are alike. Even something as seemingly insignificant as the fingerprint on your baby finger. Not another one like it anywhere, ever. So what happens when we try to repeat? What happens when we think, oh, something was like so good, I want to do that again? Yeah, disappointment. I remember in a class once I was talking about expectations, and I said, I quiz people, so what is an expectation? And somebody shouted out, a resentment waiting to happen. So, really think about this. So what happens if we're busy trying to repeat someplace we've already been? What happens if we're busy trying to create something we think somewhere or something somebody else has already done? It doesn't work that way. There's a way where everything that happens, we have to breathe it in, we have to experience it, and then you have to let it go. Even something that's repetitive. Let's say you're a performer and you have a show that you're doing. Guess what? Every show is going to be different. Every show is going to have its own unique quality. There could be a favorite recipe that you have. And every time you make that particular meal, it's going to be a little bit different. When we judge that something is not what it was before, or even when we judge it because it's not what we had expected it to be, we miss the blessings in what we did create. Okay? Just because it's not what you thought you wanted doesn't mean it's not good. It's just going to be different. It's just different. You can't ruin your life. You can't mess up your life. Because God is everywhere. All roads are going to lead to God. You can find God at the Himalayas. You can find God in the gutter. What is hitting the bottom? Hitting the bottom isn't just that you sunk so low. Hitting the bottom is that place of surrender where you finally learn that there's something bigger and greater than you. So how low do you have to go before you're willing to figure that out? We determine what is our bottom. My bottom's just a little higher now. I don't have to go so low. I want you to catch that. You don't have to go so low. This thing of growth, don't set yourself up for failure. The moment that you start to use the word always, you're setting yourself up for failure. Well, I meditate, but, I can't seem to stay on track. I do this, but then I drop that. And I just want to always do this. I want to make sure that I'm always on. I always, you know what? Let it go. Let it go. One day at a time. That's all you can ever do, is one day at a time. It isn't about always being on. It's about correcting more quickly. I want to say that again. It's not about always being on. It's about correcting more quickly. A rocket ship to the moon is only on course about 5% of the time. It has these very sophisticated mechanisms that keep bringing it back into balance. Do you hear what I'm saying? You would do better if you're going to fret and worry and try to plan something in your life, instead of trying to plan this way that you're just always going to be on. Create a life that keeps bringing you back. Check that out. Check the difference in that. A life that keeps bringing you back. What support systems can you have in place that keep bringing you back? What people can keep reminding you of your value, of your growth, of your possibility, and won't co-sign for your negativity? Where can you have things on your screen on your computer, stuff on your refrigerator that are these constant reminders to you of who you are? See, what happens when we grow is that our tolerance level for not being who we are gets less and less. The more mature you become, the less patience you have for BS. The more grounded you become, and it isn't even a judgment. There's just no attraction. There's just no Velcro. I call it Velcro, like the sticky stuff. It just can't stick to you anymore because there's nothing in you that's resonating with it. Okay? When you grow, something shifts. When you grow, something happens. Now, part of the reason sometimes we don't grow is because we are worried about everything that's going to happen. There's something within us that kind of knows if I really grow, things can't be the same. And I'm really afraid of outgrowing. Breathe. All I said was outgrowing. All of you just stop breathing. I'm afraid of outgrowing whatever. This marriage, this relationship, this career, this spiritual community, this home, this whatever. I'm too afraid that if I grow, I'm going to somehow lose. Everything you ever wanted to know, you'll find in nature. Everything you ever want to know, you'll find in nature. So let's just say you have a plant that's in a pot. And the plant keeps growing, and the pot doesn't. There's only a couple of things that are going to happen here. Either that pot is going to break out of the weight, out of the pure expansion of the roots of that plant, or that plant's going to stop growing and shrivel up. It's pretty much how it goes. But here's the good news. Here's the good news. That the universe is working with you. The universe knows that pot's too small. And if there's any part of us that's willing to trust, we get planted in new territory. See, we're afraid that we can grow and that the other things won't grow. But nothing just stays the same. Your relationships do have an opportunity to grow. Your career does have an opportunity to grow. It may not grow the way you think it should grow. It may not look the way that you think that it should look, but nothing is static. So it's just kind of catch-22. I'm afraid to grow because I'm afraid that this other thing's not going to grow. But I don't give it a chance to grow if I don't. I remember really learning this lesson years and years ago about the closet. And all of these reasons why we had to hide, we had to pretend, we couldn't let people know who we were and hide our relationships because we weren't going to be accepted, we're going to be thrown out of our families, we're going to lose our jobs, blah-de-blah-de-blah. And what I finally figured out is that if I never show up as who I am, then the world will never have a chance to adjust to who I am. If I never show up, it's like if I never take my partner to a family dinner, then how is my family ever going to get to know my partner or me or what we're like? Do you feel what I'm saying? So there's a bit of risk-taking that happens with this thing called growth. And what I am so happy to say, that there has never been a risk that I have ever taken that wasn't worth it. There is a direct risk-reward relationship. The more you risk, the greater the possibility of the reward. The less you risk, the less chance you get to see for the glory of it all. Like, if you're really willing to love, really, really love, you get to experience the joys of love, the pain of love, yes. But if you aren't willing to experience the pain of love, then you'll never really know the joy of love. Are you with me? And the beautiful thing that happens is that once we grow, we begin to realize it's worth it. That whatever that pain is that we have from loving, we wouldn't trade that for not having experienced the joy of love at all. It could be a business venture. It could be almost anything. No, things don't always turn out the way that you would want it to turn out. But if you really go for it, if you really grow, if you really allow yourself to step into your all, there are benefits that you will get that outweigh your fears. Things shift. Things change. I'm telling you what I know. Things shift. Things change. They do. And all of the places that look like they were stuck, or all the places that look like, oh, they're going to be against me, that stuff is shifting. That stuff has shifted. And some of the very same people who were busy rejecting me are busy embracing me now. But it wouldn't have happened if we hadn't risked the growth. Are you with me? It wouldn't have happened if we didn't risk the growth. Trust. Just trust. Trust that being who you are called to be is not going to be at your detriment. For you to be who you are called to be doesn't mean you're going to lose. Things may shift, but let them shift. Things have to fall apart to fall together. I want you to really feel that. They have to fall apart to fall together. Nature. A tall tree has to have really deep roots, yes? Big building has to have a strong foundation. You just can't keep adding on. If you have a foundation that's built for a 2-story house, you can't put 6 stories on that foundation. At some point, you have to build a bigger foundation. But to build that bigger foundation, some of that other stuff, it's going to have to come down for a little while to rebuild. Okay? This happens in relationships. This happens in organizations. This happens in businesses, where growth doesn't mean that you just keep going up, 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 up. You have to shift what's underneath as well. In order to be sustainable, there's more that you're going to have to do at your base. See, sobriety is something you can't add sobriety onto addiction. You can't add unconditional loving on top of judgment. You can't add prosperity, on top of fear of abundance. We can't add on top. That in order for us to grow, we have to retrofit. We have to retrofit our values. We have to go into some new territory. We have to allow ourselves to move in the same direction. The good news is that the universe supports you. The universe supports you. It's just like growing, okay? You're out of high school now, but guess what? There's a whole world ready to support you for wherever it is that you are. Breathe. Ooh, you're tense. This is good news. Life supports your growth. Every time one door seems to close, another one opens. Another one opens. It may not be that exact way again, but there will be something else. Every time I've ever been afraid of leaving something or losing something, I've opened up a door and it's like there was a party on the other side of all these people who were like, come on in. We were waiting to see how long it was going to take you. Have you ever noticed that? Or you've been ashamed, or you've been embarrassed that this failure, you don't have this thing anymore, what? And you've been afraid of everybody's judgment. And then finally, they're truthful with you now that you don't have it. Oh, that was too small for you anyway. You know you've always wanted to do X, Y, Z. Yeah! Now you're free. Go for it. Give yourself permission. The universe supports you. Every divine idea comes with its own supply. Everything the seed needs to be what it's supposed to be, it already has. All we have to do is create a conducive environment. That's all. We just have to not say no. We just have to say yes. That's all. And when I say you can't mess up your life, you can't mess up your life, because if you won't create the conducive environment, the universe will make it for you. If you can't create the space, the universe will create the space. If you don't slow down, the universe will slow you down. Yeah? You don't want to be loving or whatever. That sister of mine, that mother of mine, I'm never going to speak to them again. Blah, 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 blah. And then your kid is your mother. Your boss is your sister. You know what I'm talking about? You can say yes and do this as drama-free as little as possible, or we can drag this thing out. Drama is optional. Drama is optional. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid. Because something new and great and grand and glorious is waiting for you. What the caterpillar calls the end of the world, the butterfly calls but the beginning. Let the butterfly in you out. Don't be dismayed at the goo in between. That chrysalis metamorphosis, that's that meltdown that I'm talking about, where you just can't put wings on the caterpillar. There's something that happens, but it's not for your bad. You don't have to fear it. You don't have to fear those transitions. They are refining you. They're purifying you. They're getting you ready. They're pumping you up. Just say yes. Can you say yes? Are you willing to go for it? Yes. Are you willing to grow? Yes. Are you willing to get into some new territory? Yes. Yes. Let's pray. Let us pray. Let's pray.